गणानां त्वा गणपतिं हवामहे कविं कवीनामुपमश्रवस्तमं ज्येष्ठराजं ब्रह्मणां ब्रह्मणस्पत आनः शृण्वन्नोतिभिः सीदसादनम् ॐ श्रीमहागणाधिपतये नमः। ॐ वृषभं च शनीनां विश्वरूपमदाभ्यं बृहस्पतिं वरेण्यम् ॐ तद्विष्णोः परमं पदं सदा पश्यन्ति शूरयः दिविव चक्षुराततम् ॐ श्रीं ह्रीं ज्योतिर्ब्राह्माय नमः। ॐ ऋषिभ्यो नमः। Can everybody say Hare Ramakrishna 3 times? Om Hare Ramakrishna, Hare Ramakrishna, Hare Ramakrishna. Okay. Did I start recording? Yeah, I did. So, any example charts you want to see? So, today what we will do is we will do only practicals. We will go back to Parashara maybe next class or the class after that. We will pick a topic and then go back to Parashara. But we will try to catch up with the practicals. Do you guys have any practical example chart that you want to see? Okay, sure. That is also fine. I can answer questions. Okay. Actually, it will be easier. I think I can read. Okay, the questions. How do you determine the Lord of the first bhava? Okay, so the students have a few questions on the bhava chakra concept that I talked about on the Yahoo groups. So we'll be talking about that. And for those who haven't seen the mails on the Yahoo groups, just to give a quick summary for those who are listening to the MP3 but haven't seen the Yahoo group mails. The thing is, we always talk about the first bhava, second bhava, third bhava like that, and so far we have been taking the sign containing the lagna as the first bhava and the next sign as the second bhava and so on, right? And the thing is that is one viewpoint, but there is one specific quote in Parashara in BPHS where Parashara says, in case a bhava extends across two, when a bhava extends across two signs, then he says something, this is what you do. So the thing is, he is considering the possibility that bhavas can be in multiple signs. That is one data point. The other data point is, he says you find the bhava chakra, you find the houses occupied by planets with respect to various lagnas, like special lagnas, Ghati lagna, Hora lagna, Bhava lagna, Pranapada lagna, etc. And he says you make special chakras with respect to each lagna. He says specifically bhava koshtha you make, a special chakra you make. Logically speaking, what is the need to especially make a chakra? If you just have one Rasi chakra, let's say South Indian style Rasi chakra, you show lagna, you show moon, you show sun there, you show bhava lagna, hora lagna, you can look at it and see where different planets are, in what house they are. What is the need to actually make a special chart and store it on paper? What is the need for it? It doesn't make sense. Same thing with Sudarshan chakra. He says make three concentric circles, circular charts, and then divide them into 12 parts, and the planets who occupy the 12 houses from lagna, moon and sun will be shown there. So the thing is, you have a circle and you are counting from one starting point and you are counting 1, 2, 3, 4 anyway. So if there is a different starting point where moon is, where sun is, you can as well count. So what is the need to actually make 3 concentric circles and make a chart? So all these things are make you wonder, is there something else to bhava chakra rather than just counting signs? And then a few years back, what I realized is, in the chapter where he quantifies the aspects of planets, he says, depending on where a planet is, and his aspect on various points in the zodiac is having different degrees. From a planet, exact 180 degrees has 100% aspect, right? But if you go to 210 degrees, which is basically 8th house, it has 0 aspect. So it is graded from 180 to 210. And 240, there is a particular aspect. 240 degrees is basically 9th house. So that is half aspect. So at 240 degrees, it is 0.5. So at 210, it is 0. At 240, it is 0.5. So he grades from 210 to 240. Like that, depending on the exact longitude of the aspecting planet and the longitude being aspected, there is a degree he gives. He says 0.5, 0.3 like that, 20%, 30%. So you can actually quantify the aspect of a planet on any point in the zodiac. And in the chapter before that, he talks about aspects based on the Rasis, sign aspect, the so-called sign aspects, and he calls them actually planetary aspects. For example, Aries aspects Aquarius, but a planet in Aries aspecting Aquarius as well as planets in Aquarius, he calls it planetary aspect only. Planetary aspect based on sign. And then he says, now I will tell you planetary aspect based on the houses from them. So he is saying, by counting houses from the planets, based on the exact longitude, you can count the aspect. I am going to teach you that. And then he says, all planets have half aspect on 5th, 9th, but Jupiter has full aspect. Mars has full aspect on 4th and 8th, and other planets have only 3/4. Like that, he gives the formula. And then when he actually defines how you quantify the aspect, there he says, from any planet basically, if you go 90 degrees, 120 degrees, there is a particular formula he gives. And then he says, exceptions. If it is Mars that you are looking from, then the area from 90 to 120 is raised by 25%. Basically 3/4 to 100 correction. So if the aspecting planet is Mars, all the way from 90 degrees to 120 degrees, whatever value you got by default for all planets, you raise it by 25 percentage points, 1/4 basically. Like that for Jupiter, if you have Jupiter all the way from 120 to 150 degrees from Jupiter, starting from Jupiter's longitude, if you go to 120 degrees from there, starting from there till 150 degrees, those 30 degrees you basically raise it by 50 points. Like that, he gave specific guidelines on how to find the aspects. Now the thing is, he is taking the 90 degrees to 120 degrees from Mars as the 4th house from Mars. Earlier he said 4th house from Mars. So if he is taking 90 degrees to 120 degrees as the 4th house, what is the meaning of it? The meaning is, and similarly if 120 to 150 for Jupiter as the 5th house. So the meaning of this is, from the planet to 30 degrees is the first house. It's not basically the whole sign containing planet. It's not plus minus 15 degrees. Starting from where the planet is, the next 30 degrees is first house. It is basically, he is entering the house, he is the starting point of a house. The next 30 degrees is his next, that is the range of the first house from him. That is basically, he is like in a room. That is the room basically. From his point of view, this is the room right next to me. So 30 degrees from the planet is first house, and 30 to 60 is second house, 60 to 90 is third house, 90 to 120 is fourth house, 120 to 150 is fifth house, and so on. 180 to 210 is seventh house, 210 to 240 is eighth house, and so on. And if you do all the way, 330 degrees to 360 degrees from the planet, basically 30 degrees behind the planet, is 12th house. And if you reckon like this is basically based on his guidance with respect to houses from Mars and Jupiter. This is crystal clear. So now the thing is, does it apply to every difference? Because he didn't specifically say for planets there is a different way. He said find houses, find in which house each planet is with respect to Mars, with respect to Sun, with respect to various planets for Ashtaka, and also with respect to various special lagnas. He said you can make Bhavakoshta, and specifically from Sun, Moon lagna, he said you can make Bhavakoshtas and organize them as Sudarshan Chakra. So the thing is, assuming that there is only one way to reckon bhavas, then basically this is the way. And also if you do like this, if you find houses like this, then the first 7 houses from lagna will be 0 degrees to 180 degrees exactly, and the next 7 degree 180 to 360 will be 7th house to 12th house. And Shastras say 7th to 12th house are visible, and 1st to 7th is invisible. Now the thing is, if you actually look at the sky, if you lagna is where eastern horizon is, right? So if you take from lagna longitude, if you basically take 180 degrees before that, it is indeed invisible, whereas the 180 degrees above is indeed visible. Whereas if you take entire Rasi, as lagna, part of the first house is invisible. It is basically under the horizon, and part of the first house is visible. Similarly, if you take 15 degrees on each side of lagna as the first house. No. The thing is, lagna is on the eastern horizon. But the thing is, if lagna is in the middle of Cancer, let us say, half of Cancer is under the horizon, half of Cancer is above the horizon.
As far as Rasi is concerned.
Yeah, if I take the whole Rasi as house, then the thing is some fraction of the first house. If I define first house as the entire Rasi containing lagna, then physically some fraction of the house, first house is invisible, some fraction of the first house is visible, but Shastras say first house is visible. It's basically 7th to 12th house that are, sorry, first house is invisible, because it is still under the horizon, it is about to rise, and the 7th to 12th house should be visible. Now even if you take not each Rasi being a house, but plus minus 15 degrees, Lagna minus 15 degrees to Lagna plus 15 degrees, if you define that as the house, because some people do that, then also 15 degrees of the first house is invisible and only 15 degrees of the first house is visible. Similarly 7th house, 15 degrees of the 7th house is visible, 15 degrees is invisible. So this is inconsistent with the traditional understanding that 7th to 12th house are visible and the 1st to 6th house are invisible. So all these things basically, that also corroborates that Lagna must be the starting point of the first house, not the middle or somewhere in the first house. It must be the starting point of the first house. So if you apply the same thing to Bhava Lagna, Hora Lagna, Ghati Lagna, Sun, Moon, Mars, Mercury, Jupiter, etc., everything is consistent. This idea of invisible, visible is consistent physically, and the instruction of Parashara with respect to 4th house from Mars, 8th house from Mars, 5th house from Jupiter, etc., in the aspect quantification, it is consistent with that. So everything is consistent. So what I did was, in the last few years, I basically experimented with it in a few charts, and things that didn't make excellent sense earlier made only some sense, made a little better sense. I still honestly say the astrology, like I said off the record in the last class, the Jyotirvidya that we know today is basically like, it's a dim light. It's not really full light. The astrology that we know is half knowledge basically. It's not really perfect knowledge. There are obviously many corruptions that have been introduced during the course of Kali Yuga in the last 5,000 years. And if it is the desire of the Devi, if it is the desire of Krishna, and if it is the desire of Rishis, that the knowledge should be clarified more, I guess when the right time comes it will be clarified more. But my honest feeling is, astrology, despite our success, astrology as we know is imperfect. It becomes more and more perfect. So I consider this particular thing as an improvement. It's basically a work in progress, but it's an improvement compared to what I was doing earlier, whole sign as a house. It clarifies more things, and also things make more sense in many charts that I had some confusions with before. And this applies to Tithi Pravesh charts, natal charts, Tajik charts, any chart basically. And interestingly, in Western astrology, I was told that this is basically what they do. They don't take 30 degrees as house. For them, houses can vary. One house can be 28 degrees, one house can be 32 degrees. So they do Sripati or Porphyry, Placidus kind of house divisions. But the thing is, at least they take Lagna as the beginning of the first house. The first house starts from Lagna. The next 30 degrees or 29 degrees or some degrees from Lagna define the first house. Similarly, not only in Western astrology, but Krishnamurti, in KP, Krishnamurti Paddhati, apparently Krishnamurti also, he doesn't take 30 degree houses, he takes Placidus system basically. Krishnamurti division is basically Placidus. So it is non-linear way of dividing the zodiac into 12 parts, 12 houses, but Lagna is the beginning of the first house. So basically it is not that we are the first to do it. There are already precedents. The only thing is, now that I can tie into what Parashara taught and tie into some traditional concepts like the invisible and visible halves of the zodiac, I am comfortable with it basically. And moreover, when I practically tested it on many charts, it made sense to me. So I basically adopted it. I chose to speak out on it, and I'll show more examples of this and how it applies to Ashtavarga, all these things. Slowly I will basically talk about it. Like I said in my mail, this is a radical departure from tradition, whatever we've been doing so far. So, because it's a radical departure, obviously people will be very uncomfortable. Even I in the beginning was uncomfortable when I discovered the Parashara verse, and when all the rest of the logic fell in place, and when I realized what I was doing was wrong and this is the right way. It will take a little while to accept, and after I saw some examples where there was a clear difference between the two, it started to become more obvious.
But Bhavachakra, when you say that is taking the house lord as the starting point?
No, not house lord. Bhavachakra is basically a chakra that defines which planets are in the first house, which planets are in the second house, which planets are in the third house.
First house for that?
Pardon me?
Where is the difference of the first house?
Anything, Lagna, Bhava Lagna, Hora Lagna, Ghati Lagna, Sun, Moon, you can make a Bhava Chakra with respect to any reference. That is what Parasara said. He said you make a Bhava Koshtha with respect to special Lagnas, with respect to Sun, Moon.
This is a new concept now because Bhava Chakra I have heard about.
Yeah, see,
That has been existing. Right?
Bhava Chakra people make, but the thing is the way they make is, either they take the first house to be the sign containing the reference, the whole sign, or they take plus minus 15 degrees.
That is how they make the Bhava.
That is how typically people make. And like I said, Krishnamurti takes the Lagna as the beginning of the first house. He does that. But the thing is, even for example, Patel, when he defined Ashtakavarga, he took Bhavachakra rather than, but he took Bhavachakra with respect to Lagna. From Lagna, 30 degrees will be, not 30 degrees, actually he took I think plus minus 15 degrees. But the bottom line is, he took a Bhavachakra and he took it in Ashtakavarga. But my point is, when you say Saturn is auspicious in so-and-so house from Mars, you have to count the house properly, because Parasara said 90 to 120 is 4th house from Mars. So if Saturn is exactly at 95 degrees, but when you count the signs, if he is in the 3rd sign from Mars, we are so far in Ashtakavarga calculations, we are taking Saturn to be in the 3rd house from Mars. But from what Parasara gave, he is clearly in the 4th house. If his longitude difference from Mars is, let's say, 95 degrees, we may be taking him in the 3rd house, but he is actually in the 4th house, or whatever. Maybe I am changing it. Maybe you are getting it in the 5th house, but it should be 4th house. So the bottom line is, our Ashtakavarga calculations may be imperfect. So many things may be imperfect. For example, there is this tradition of finding the Murti of the planet, whether the planet is a Swarnamurti or Rajatamurti or Kansimurti or Tamramurti, etc. No, Swarnamurti, Rajamurti, Tamramurti, Lohamurti. These are the 4 Murtis. So to find it, we are always, when we say Saturn in the 8th house, if my moon is in Kumbha, when Saturn enters Kanja, I say Saturn has entered my 8th house, and I take his Murti based on when he is entering the sign, where moon was. But the thing is, that way for everybody born in Kumbha Rasi, it will be a same Murti. But the thing is, if you take these houses as defined by Parasara, if my moon is at 28.5 degrees in Kumbha, then only when he comes to 28.5 degrees in Virgo, he is actually entering the 8th house. Until then, he is not in the 8th house. So when he is entering that particular degree, when he is entering that, maybe you can find Murti then. As a matter of fact, when I tried like that, it made more sense in many cases basically. Now, in the same sign when Saturn is transiting, for the 2 people who are born in Kumbha Rasi, he may be in 7th house and 8th house for both of them, not in the same house. Also, he may be in a different, depending on the exact degree, he may be in a different Murti. For 100 people in Kumbha Rasi, Saturn, for all of them, Saturn may be in the 8th house when he is transiting Kanja, but for some of them he may be Lohamurti, some of them he may be Swarnamurti. So all these variations are going to come. So there is actually a lot, but I wanted to go slowly. Like I said, this is a radical departure, so I want to introduce each concept one by one. And obviously there will be some people who will be taken aback by all this, and also some people who think this is, see, always people are suspicious of things that they are not used to. But the thing is, this is not really my invention. I am only interpreting Parasara and also I am interpreting some things that are from tradition. So it's not really my invention. But anyway, so I'll answer the questions. So the students in the class have a few questions. I will try to answer some of them. How do you determine the Lord of the first bhava? How do you determine the Lord of the first bhava? So first bhava is basically starting from Lagna, going up to 30 degrees from there. And like I said in the mail, even though a house may be in 2 different rasis, the entry point of the house is basically the important. That is the one that controls the house. It is like basically that door to the room is controlling the room. Anybody who guards that, he controls who is in this room and when they can be sent out, when they can be sent in, etc. So the one who controls the door. So Lagna, the sign Lord where Lagna is posited, he is the Lord of the first house. Similarly, if you take 30 degrees plus Lagna, wherever that point falls, that is the most important, most significant point of the second house, because that is the entry into the second house. So the Lord of that sign is the second Lord, and so on. And you can do this not just from Lagna, from any reference. When you take Mars, for example, exactly where Mars is, the sign Lord is first Lord from Mars, the next sign Lord is second Lord from Mars.
You take, say, for example, from Mars.
Let's say Mars is in Aries at 26 degrees. Okay, so Mars himself is the first house Lord from Mars, because Aries. second lord is Venus. So nothing has changed basically. It is similar to what we were doing earlier, as far as the lords of the houses are concerned.
So we will take from where the Lord is.
You take where the reference is, whether it's Mars or Lagna or Hora Lagna. Take the reference. The lord of that sign will be the first house lord. 30 degrees from there, that will be the next sign, obviously.
Even if it's 29, 29.
Yes, even if it's 29, even if it's the end, basically, he is controlling that.
What would be the difference between a native, if a native longitude of Lagna
Yeah.
is 29 degrees
Compared to,
15 degrees? If you draw the Bhava chart,
yeah.
presuming that the rest of the planets are wherever they
Right. Now the issue will be, even though in a particular case, let's say Lagna is 29 degrees in Aries. So even though his Lagna lord is Mars, there may be several planets in Lagna, in first house, not Lagna but in first house, who are controlled by Venus. Their first house lord is Mars. Venus is not first house lord, but there may be several planets in the first house for whom the dispositor is Venus. So there is, that way there will be some Venus influence through the planets occupying Taurus part of the first house. So there will be some influence of Venus on Lagna through those planets.
But he is not the Lord of that first house in the
He is not the lord of the first house, but he is the lord of the sign containing those planets. So he is the Rasi lord of the, he is the Rasi lord of those planets. Those planets are in his house. So in other words, the room basically may be controlled by, let's say Mars is at the door, he is guarding this room. So Mars is the first house lord, he is guarding this room. But several people who are in this room, they may be paying their rent to Venus. So they will listen to Venus basically. So Venus has a say on what they do. So if there are planets in Taurus, in first house, then through them Venus can affect the first house. That is the bottom line. Okay?
How has this to be interpreted with respect to the normal Rasi? For example, in the Rasi chart,
There is no normal Rasi chart, really speaking.
okay.
Because whenever Parasara says, he doesn't say, if a planet is in Aries, this is the result. I mean, those are also there, but those are only rudimentary results. He is always saying if the second lord is in third house, fourth lord is in eighth house. So results are all with respect to houses. So the thing is, there is, really speaking, there is no Rasi chart. Or you can say there is Rasi chart, but associated with it, there are several Bhava charts with respect to Lagna, with respect to Sun, with respect to Moon, with respect to Mars, with respect to Bhava Lagna, with respect to Hora Lagna, etc. Yeah, the way we normally make Rasi chart is just to see where the planets are, who are controlling them, and what are the Rasi aspects, where which Rasi the planets are aspecting, etc. But really, for practical, for interpretation purposes, it is mostly what is important is Bhavas, which Bhava contains which planets, which Bhava is aspected by which planets, and so on. So from that point of view, Bhava chakra is the most important thing.
So the aspects will also change, right?
See, there are different kinds of aspects, Rasi aspects and longitude based aspects. Longitude based aspects, they don't really change, but the thing is, we may not have taken the longitude into consideration before. We may have said, oh, Saturn is in Taurus, okay, he is aspecting Cancer, planets in Cancer. Exactly what the longitude is, we may not have seen before, but you have to.
When you change the reference,
Yeah.
what does each Bhava, how is, with respect to Moon Bhava Chakra, how is it different from with respect to Sun, how is it different from with respect to...
That we have been doing before. There is nothing new basically. I am not introducing anything new. Moon is for the mind, so the Bhava chakra with respect to mind, Moon shows various aspects of mind. First house is the very essence of mind. Second house is what feeds the mind. Third house is what gives initiative to the mind. Fourth house is what gives comfort to the mind, and so on. Similarly, everything is the same. If you take Mercury, for example, Mercury is the karaka for learning, for various things, career. So when you take Mercury as karaka, you are seeing all those things. If you take Sun as karaka, you are seeing father, power, etc. So all that doesn't change. Venus as karaka, you are seeing, you take Venus as lagna, you are seeing marriage, etc., vehicles, etc. So whatever we were doing earlier is the same. The karaka lagna, hora lagna, ghatika lagna for power, hora lagna for money, all those things remain the same. We are not changing. Exactly how you reckon the first house. Earlier, if Moon was in Aquarius, you will take the whole Pisces as second house, whole Aries as third house. Now you will see where in Aquarius Moon is. So from there, 30 degrees is first house. From there, another 30 degrees is second house, and so on. So the way you reckon the houses has changed, but the meaning of the houses, the meaning of the reference, it's all the same. So we are just refining what we were doing earlier. We are not radically changing it from that point of view. But the thing is, the refinement is so big in some cases, in some border cases, especially the closer the planet is towards the end of the sign. The refinement is much higher, bigger, so that will be resisted by some people. So next question is the place.
One more thing before you go.
Yeah.
When we say the Bhavachakra is there, by default when we say is there only one, I know there are multiple Bhavachakras you can make.
Yeah, yeah.
planets and
Yeah, yeah.
But when you by default say Bhavachakra, is it always referred to from
Lagna.
Is
Lagna,
there
yeah.
one? Is there one
The default Bhavachakra is from Lagna.
from Lagna?
Yeah.
And is there,
Because that's the most important difference.
are there names for different Bhavachakras that are drawn?
No, there are no names. Bharasara only said, just like you make from Lagna, reckon where the which houses planets occupy with respect to these references, special Lagnas, and make individual Bhavakosthas. That is his instruction. He didn't say any name. But obviously you can call it Bhavachakra from BL, Bhavachakra from HL, Bhavachakra from GL, Bhavachakra from Mars. You can give your own names. But the thing is, he didn't give any specific names. They are just Bhavachakras with respect to various references. Each Bhavachakra consists of a reference, and it consists of 12 houses, each house having some planets. That is the bottom line. That is the abstraction. The next point is, next question here written is, the placement of the planets would change if they are more towards the 30 degrees. The placement of the planets would change if they are more towards the 30 degrees. Not necessarily. If they are, it's the opposite.
This was the extension of the previous question.
Okay, okay. The next question is, as a matter of fact, the way you can find the houses is, take the longitude of the reference. Suppose Lagna you are seeing. Lagna is at 18 degrees. Any planet which is above 18 degrees, it is in the same house as you would normally see based on Rasi, each Rasi being a house. If Lagna is, let's say, Aquarius 18 degrees. So a planet is in Aries but above 18 degrees, then he is in third house only. Because from Aquarius, Aries is the third sign. But if a planet is below that degree, you push it back to the previous house. So a planet in Aries at, let's say, 12 degrees will be in the second house. So it's actually very easy. If you look at the longitudes, it's very easy to look at the Rasi chart and figure out the house chart, Bhavachakra, manually with respect to any reference. Just see the reference longitude and take all the planets which are below it, push them back to the previous sign in your mind. And then
Any option in the software to move
there is a Bhavachakra, but I'm not sure if it's perfect. No, there is also an ascendant at the beginning of Lagna is also there for Krishnamurti. If you go to houses,
That doesn't change.
that changes actually. It does work. Only problem is sometimes I found when I tried it, Lagna is sometimes in the previous house. It should be applied only to planets, but when you do a comparison of the longitude of Lagna with Lagna, sometimes the comparison was probably coming to the previous sign. So I had to figure out what's going on. Yeah. But the thing is, it's very easy to do manually if you are just doing manually. Okay. Then
Maybe if someone has Mahapurush Yoga and now
it's very big gone. Sorry. For Mahapurush Yoga, you need planet to be in a quadrant and also Mula Trikona or one sign or acceleration sign, both. So it has to be house based also, it has to be in the, so basically it's not just based on the Rasi occupied by the planet and the Rasi occupied by the Lagna, but also longitude of the Lagna. Lagna longitude has to be such that the planet is in the right part of the sign.
how much Mahapurusha he is?
That is not necessarily based on longitude. How much Mahapurusha is based on strength of the planet, etc. But the condition now will become more stringent. Sometimes, let's say Jupiter is in let's say Sagittarius, but let's say he is at 10 degrees Sagittarius, and Lagna is Virgo, let's say, but Virgo 20 degrees. Then Jupiter is in third house, so he's not really, it's not Mahapurush Yoga. That's the thing. Okay. Now, what is the next question? How would one interpret the Bhavachakra? We will see more examples later, but the thing is, it's basically as we did earlier. Only the reckoning of the Bhavachakra has changed, but not the interpretation. If a yoga is seen, the Rasi chart, and the same yoga is annulled in the Bhava chart, what does that indicate? The thing is, no yoga is really defined in Rasi chart. Yogas are defined based on bhavas. So it is actually the bhavachakra in which you see. Rasi chart doesn't matter.
A lot of the answers.
Okay. All already there. Okay, that's fine. I'll just read them. What is the symbolism of the bhavachakra? Well, I don't know how to answer it, but bottom line is, it is in astrology the 12 houses represent 12 different angles of basically 12 aspects relating to yourself. Some relating to dharma, some relating to artha, some relating to kama, some relating to moksha. And those are seen from the bhavachakra, not really Rasi chakra. Rasi chakra only shows which Rasi planets occupy. What is the symbolism of the bhavachakra? Does one also need to draw the bhavachakra with respect to lagna, moon, sun and special lagnas for the divisional charts? Yes. The thing is, in divisional charts, Parasara did mention about bhavas. He did say which planets being in specific houses in the divisional chart. He did mention that. And also, he mentioned aspects in the divisional charts. He mentioned Monotrikona exaltation in the divisional charts. So the thing is, all these indicate that you have to be able to do whatever you do in the Rasi chart, also in the divisional chart. So my recommendation is, look at the divisional longitude. The thing is, if a planet is in Taurus Navamsha, it's not like any planet who is in Taurus, it is in some part of the Taurus. So there is a longitude associated with the planet. And you may say, how can there be a longitude? This is not real Taurus, this is an abstract thing. But the thing is, this abstract thing has been mapped back to the physical Taurus. Even though Navamsha positions of planets are abstract, they have been mapped back to physical positions. So the thing is, there must be a longitude also that is mapped to physically in Taurus. So you can find the divisional longitudes from Jehora. So use the divisional longitude of various references and you can find houses from references also. But the thing is, the problem will be, compared to Rasi, in Navamsha, it will change. See, within 14 minutes, the entire 30 degrees are going to be covered, right, in the Rasi. And depending on where the Lagna is in the 30 degrees, different planets will move back. They will be either in the 6th house or 7th house. They will be either in the 9th house or 10th house. The house occupied by various planets will change by one. As the Lagna progresses further, some planets will go back to the previous house. When Lagna is at the beginning of the sign, basically the houses occupied are based on our previous understanding, taking each Rasi as a house. But as Lagna progresses in the sign, in the Navamsha sign, slowly one planet after the other may go back to the previous house compared to what they were earlier. So the thing is, it may be possible to see, oh, he got a new job in this planet's dasha, this planet's antardasha, this planet's dasha gave some trouble. So this planet has to be not in the 9th house but 8th house, but still this planet has to be in the 5th house, not in the 4th. So like that, basically this can be used in rectification sometimes basically now. But the thing is, the exact house occupied by various planets can change now. But there is only one. It will either remain the same as before or change by one, go back by one. Those are the options. Those are the possibilities. But again, you can do the same thing from moon, same thing from various references. What does the bhavachakra with respect to various planets suggest? It is answered. Do we see argalas, drishtis, debilitation, exaltation in the bhavachakra? See, the thing is, bhavachakra is just bhavas. It is not sign. Exaltation is defined based on sign, which sign planet occupies. Some signs are exaltation signs, some signs are debilitation signs. Similarly, argala. How is argala defined? Is it based on rasis or is it based on the houses? Actually, argala is based on houses. Yeah, planets in the 4th house, 2nd house, 11th house have argala. So it is based on the argalas actually. So the thing is, it is actually applicable in bhavachakra. So look at argalas in the bhavachakra. But Rasi aspect, exaltation, debilitation, see it in the Rasi chart. Okay?
Yeah. It was mentioned that your basic Rasi chart is what the environment that you are in.
Yeah.
And your Bhava chart is what you perceive that environment to
Mhm.
be. And a lot of things
Yeah.
in that context. So
Mhm.
all of our questions are actually related to that.
I see.
So that was the basic.
Okay, okay.
And hence the reason why what we were presuming is we want
Yeah.
to find out which one is the final.
See, the thing is, because the word bhava means meaning or concept or it's basically it means concept. So because of that, some people may have thought that Bhavachakra shows your concept, your perception, what you want, like that. Some people may have interpreted based on the name like that. But the bottom line is, Parasara never said there is a Rashachakra and also there is a Bhavachakra. You have to use Rashachakra for this and Bhavachakra for this. He said, make Rashi chart, make Navamsa chart, make Hora chart, which basically tell you which sign is occupied by a planet in that chart. So you're making a Rashi chart, you're making a Navamsa chart, a Hora chart, a Drakana chart, and so on. And then he's saying, okay, fine, now find which houses are occupied by various planets with respect to Lagna, with respect to Hora Lagna, Ghadiya Lagna, Sun, Moon, Mars, etc. And then he is giving readings on this house lord in this house, this is the meaning, this house lord in this house, this is the meaning. So the thing is, Rasi, Hora, Navamsa, these are all basic entities that you prepare to know where the planets are. And then you take it from there. You make Bhavachakras with respect to various references, and that is what you use to make predictions.
And what you said also is same as the explanation that we are talking about, right? Because when you take the Bhavachakra, when you take with respect to that Bhava,
Yeah.
whether it is first, second, third or whichever, from there 1, 2, 3 everybody has that corresponding meaning of third house for initiative and
Right,
what,
right.
From that
Right.
from that Bhava.
Right. But the thing is, it's not really, third house is not really what you want to, that is initiative that you want to have, or fourth house is the mother you want to have, or the vehicle you want to have. It's not really like what you want to have. It is what you have basically. In other words, the distinction on some websites is Rasi is what you have and Bhava is what you desire, what you want to have. That's not really accurate.
Perceive that you have.
Right. The thing is, perception is not really based on Bhavachakra. Perception is based on, like we say earlier, Arudhas and houses, right? So perception is more from the Arudhas. So Bhavachakra has nothing to do with perception. Bhavachakra is basically the chakra.
In the same thing it was mentioned that if the Rasi chart and the Bhava chart are not different, then the person has the Gayatri mantras, then he has the blessings of Mother Gayatri and all this is mentioned, sir. And hence the question was,
Obviously, somebody who thinks he has Gayatri's blessings and who has same Rasi and Bhavachakra drew to that conclusion. Basically, in other words, what I am trying to say is, I see no basis for that.
for you it was changing. Correct?
Yeah.
It was changing. For Vijay Garu it was not changing.
See, I can tell you one thing. I can tell you one thing. Whether Rajachakra and Bhavachakra, see, the thing is, really speaking, how can you compare Rajachakra and Bhavachakra and say they are the same? Bhavachakra doesn't really have a Cancer, Leo in it. Bhavachakra has first, second, third, fourth, fifth, seventh, 10th, etc. So there are some planets in first house, some in second house, some in third house. For convenience, we reuse the Rashi chart, we keep Lagna where it is, and move some planets back to the previous sign. Show as though a planet that is in Aries is actually in Pisces. We show like that. But the thing is, what Parasara said, specifically in Sudarshan Chakra, is make a circle and just count 1, 2, 3, 4, make 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and put the planets in respective houses. He didn't even say Rasi is there. So Bhavachakra is a different thing. Bhavachakra shows which house each planet is in, and Rashachakra shows which sign physically it occupies. So that you can't really compare. Comparing them is like comparing apples and bananas, or apples and oranges. He is still debilitated. If the planet is, let's say Saturn is in Aries, and when you make the Bhavachakra, it shows as though he is in Pisces. He is not in Pisces, he is in Aries only. But he is in the house that you normally associate with Pisces. Suppose somebody has Lagna in Scorpio, right? So Aries you take as the 6th house. But to represent the fact that he is in the 5th house, when people show the chart, they show Saturn in Pisces. It's just our representation. He is not in Pisces, he is in Aries only. It's not that Bhavachakra shows him to be in Pisces. Yeah, 5th house has Saturn in Aries, who's debilitated there, period. And whose whose dispositor is Mars. So Saturn in a Martian sign, debilitated, is in the 5th house, which is ruled by Jupiter. That is the bottom line, okay? So there are basically two different charts which are showing two different aspects of the information. But the thing is, if you know the longitudes also, if the longitudes are also marked in the Rashi chart, you can reduce the Bhava chart. You don't need to make a special chart. But instead of storing the longitudes there, you are basically making a chart of storing it. So that is the bottom line. So there is no question of comparing Bhava chakra and Rashi chakra. The thing is, it's not a modified Rashi chakra. It is a different chakra showing different information, which is derived based on the Rashi chart and longitudes. And So, and also if Rasi chart and Bhava chakra are the same, like I said, it's a stupid comparison, but assuming you can compare. Basically, if every planet is above Lagna in longitude, it doesn't mean anything basically. It doesn't mean you will have blessings of Gayatri or Savitri or Krishna or Surya or Kumara. It's basically somebody's idle mind, somebody's creative mind basically came up with it. It has no meaning. And I know people who actually did experience several things with Gayatri who don't have Rasi chart and Bhava chart being the same. I know several people who have a clue about Gayatri. So there's nothing like that. It's just, don't worry. So keep doing Gayatri even if your Bhava chart is different from Rasi chart. Actually, for Gayatri mantra's blessings, you need Gayatri mantra is sun basically. So also it is considered Vedamata. So Jupiter and Ketu are important. There has to be some influence of Jupiter and Ketu on the either Lagna Lord or fifth house or some house that shows your personality or your mantra. There has to be some influence of Jupiter Ketu. Then you are basically proficient in Veda mantras. You have an understanding of Veda. That is one thing, Jupiter and Ketu. Secondly, Sun is the deity, Savita. Savitri Gayatri mantra is basically a mantra for Savita. And Savita is actually, there are several ways to look at it. One is Hasta. If you look in the Nakshatra Chakra, Hasta is the Nakshatra owned by Savita. So, for example, I have so much attachment to Gayatri. For me, any homa I do, at the end I meditate with Gayatri. I may have done a different mantra. When I do, for example, Bhagavad Gita homam, I may have, you read the Bhagavad Gita, you do Samputikarana with Klim Krishna Govinda Gopijan Vallabhai Swaha. So I may have read that mantra hundreds of times, but at the end when the Purnahuti is burning and I am meditating, I go back to Gayatri. Whether it's Chandi homam, Gita homam, Krishna homam, any homam, I have a deep attachment with Gayatri, and whatever knowledge I have is through Gayatri, whatever spiritual knowledge I have. And for me, if you look at my chart, the links are, Sun basically is in the 7th house and is aspecting the Lagna. So there is a solar aspect. Sun is the only planet who is basically having a full aspect on Lagna. That is one thing. And also my Lagna is in Hasta Nakshatra. Hasta Nakshatra is owned by Savita. Actually, if you see another example, this person who, Swami Vivekananda, Narendranath, he was a great worshipper of Savita. For him also, he used to do Chandipat and other things, but Gayatri was his favorite mantra. Whenever he wanted to chant, he would chant Gayatri mantra. So he also had a deep attachment with Gayatri mantra. If you see his chart, he has Sun in Lagna. He has Dhanur Lagna, having Sun in Lagna. He is Atmakarka too. And moreover, his moon is in Hasta. Just like my Lagna is in Hasta, in this case his moon is in Hasta Nakshatra, in the 10th house or whichever house, 9th house or whatever. He is in Hasta. So the thing is, if you take two examples of people who have an attachment with Gayatri, Hasta is standing out, and also there is some influence of Hasta on the in this case on the mind, in my case on the intellect, and also there is influence of Sun on Lagna. So influence of Sun on Lagna, or 5th house or 5th lord or Lagna lord, influence of Hasta Nakshatra. These are the things that you should see, rather than. And in my case, Lagna has Kartari from Jupiter and Ketu. Ketu in 12th house and Jupiter in 2nd house. One planet there, one planet here. So because Lagna has Kartari of Jupiter and Ketu, it is as though Jupiter and Ketu occupy my Lagna. So they influence my intellect. So for that reason, Jupiter and Ketu combination is good for Vedic knowledge. So for that reason, some Vedic verses I can visualize. When I meditate for a while, I can understand the meaning. So I have a Runa basically. I have some connection with the Vedas. So that is because of the Jupiter Ketu influence. So those are the things that are important, rather than Bhava chart, Rasi chart being same.
Your Bhava Chakra, your Lagna has Jupiter and Ketu. Jupiter and Ketu in Lagna.
Ketu cannot be. Cannot be. Bhava chakra, Ketu cannot be. He has to be in the 12th house, right? Okay, so we answered the questions. So do you want to see any example charts from either with respect to the houses or in general?
So yeah, I have a question on the Panchanga.
On what?
Panchanga.
Panchangam, sure, go ahead.
Go to
Misrani, Panchanga, yeah. So Vijay has a question on Panchanga.
Uttarashada is whole day in the 31st today.
Yeah.
And it also tomorrow it's all the way up to 7:50 if you go to September 1st.
Yeah.
So that is the next morning, right? The star indicates.
I think 7, yeah, the star is misplaced, I believe.
Okay.
It should be 750, not star.
Okay.
Yeah, sunrise, there is some bug. I had to look at it.
Okay, that was my.
Yeah, it's a bug. It cannot be.
Yeah, that's what I thought. It cannot be today.
Yeah, if you make the chart for today, like tomorrow, September 1, so you can see Uttarashad till 750. There is no star there. So for the second day, basically in the chart, I think there may be a bug with the star. This is the latest version, right?
Right. Well, I have the
Okay.
latest one here.
Okay, so there is a bug in the latest. I'll take a look at it. And I also have a data. Okay, good. Just in case, if I can't reproduce, can you just save that chart? Because if I open the chart, I should be able to recreate the problem. Basically, reproducing the problem is the key. Once I reproduce, debugging is easy always. Okay, so any other questions on anything? We are open today. Anything, any questions on anything? Anything so far?
On the bhavas, how does the Arudas play a role?
Yeah, I'll talk about it later. The thing is, there are different views. One view is, when Sanjay ji originally taught me Arudhas, he taught me two ways. He said, figure out which one is working better. I'm not 100% sure which is better. One is sign based, other is longitude based. So the thing is, the version of BPHS that I have, Santanam's version, says specifically count the Rashis. But apparently there are other versions of Parasara which say count houses. But the thing is, irrespective of what Parasara said, I did experiment both the approaches programmatically. But the thing is, before I speak out on anything, I want to be convinced that this is consistent with what a Rishi taught. So I will speak about it later. But bottom line is, the way, if you say that Arudhas are based on Rashis alone, then the thing is, irrespective of what the Bhavachakra is, you take the sign occupying the Bhava, you take where the sign lord is, you count the signs, and you count the same number of signs. If you do that, basically, then you get the same way as we do now. And when you take houses from Aruh Lagna, what is the longitude of Aruh Lagna? So in this approach, when Sanjay ji told me this approach, he said, take the longitude. Of course, he wasn't talking about longitude based houses, but just to see the longitude, he said, Aruh Lagna is at Lagna's longitude, because it doesn't have a longitude of its own. So that is one way. The other way is, actually you take from Lagna at what longitude the planet is. So suppose in this example, let us say, where is Lagna? So right now in the public version, that option is not there, but we can add. So I can give it in the public version soon. So Lagna is at 8 degrees 47 minutes Aquarius. Let us take Saturn as the Lagna Lord. Okay, let's say Saturn is the Lagna Lord. Rahu can also be, but just for calculation, let's take Saturn. So Saturn is at 29 degrees 3 minutes in Leo. So we believe he is in the 7th house, but actually, if you just take the longitude, the distance from Lagna to Saturn is 180 degrees plus whatever 29.3 minus 847. So if you approximate 847 as 9 and approximate 29 as 29, it's 20 degrees more. So take 7th house 180 degrees and add 20 degrees. So if you do the same to Saturn, right? So if you add 180 degrees to Saturn position, you get in Aquarius 29 degrees, and you add 20 degrees to it. So you basically get 90 degrees in Pisces. So you are getting 90 degrees in Pisces. Now, is that in the first house or 7th house? To apply the exception, is it in the first house or 7th house? No, it's not in the first house, because first house is 8 Aquarius to 8 Pisces. But this is what we got is 19 degrees Pisces approximately, between 18 and 19 degrees Pisces. So it is in the second house. So now that is your Aruh Lagna. You don't have to basically take the 10th house or 4th house, or you don't have to add further 90 degrees or 270 degrees to it. You just take that particular longitude. So you get Aruh Lagna in Pisces at 90 degrees. And now when you take the houses from Aruh Lagna, you just take 90 degrees Pisces as reference, 30 degrees, 30 degrees. So it's straightforward. And when you do this, see, normally the Arudha of a house, right? Arudha of any house can be only in certain houses from it. Like, it can be in the first house, it can be in the third house, it can be in the fifth house, it can be in the 7th house, it can be in the 9th house, it can be in the odd houses. And the exceptions are if the planet is in the same house, it can be in the 10th and 4th. So basically 1, 3, 4, 5, 7, 9, 10, 11. These are the possibilities. So like this, if you basically take the Arudhas of the Lagna and 7th house or Arudha of the Lagna and 4th house, there are certain relationships that are normally happening. Like for example, Arudha Lagna, AL and A7 being in Shashtashthakas is almost ruled out. It can happen when the exception applies, but the probability for that happening is low. But further, there are some specific results given in the Shastras, AL and A7 being in Shashtashthakas. But with this, AL and A7 can be in Shashtashthakas, the probability of that is much higher. It's not a rare incident anymore, because now you are taking the exact longitude. See, Lagna Lord is in the 7th house, but still Aru Lagna didn't come out in Lagna when you did the math. It actually came in the 2nd house. So depending on the exact longitudes, it can be plus minus 30 degrees. So the bottom line is, any house can have Aru Lagna. Aru Lagna is not restricted to certain houses from Lagna. It can be in any house from Lagna. So that is a possibility, and actually you can experiment in some charts, some known charts, and see which Aru Lagna, especially when doing longitude based and doing sign based, you get different sign, different planet being the Aru Lagna Lord. You can experiment with some charts and see which one fits the image better, and which one explains the life, the dashas, etc. When there was a lot of money coming in, when there was a loss, etc. When there was a fall, which one makes more sense. You can experiment, and I will give my view a little later. Any other questions? But the thing is, what I want to emphasize is, some people may just look at it as some research. But the thing is, of course this is research, but there are certain things that you feel confident about, and certain things that you just present just like that. This is one of the things that I feel confident about. This is one of the things that has sanction of Parasara, sanction of tradition, even though people may not be able to realize it. This is actually also very logical compared to what we do, plus minus 15 or whole Rasi. This is a very logical thing. So you will do well to actually consider this in your practice and experiment with this at least on some charts to start with, to gain proficiency. Any other questions? Okay, do you want to see any chart? If you have any data, we can see the chart. I'll restart. An example. Vijay is going to give an example chart. Okay, give the data. August 18, happy birthday. 1989. 7:37 p.m. Okay. Wilmington, Delaware. Oops, sorry. Male or female? Female. Okay. It's a boy. Okay. One sec. Wilmington, Delaware. Oh. Okay. Let us first save this. How do we save this? Tarun. T-A-R-U-N or T-H-A? Okay, Tarun. J is example chart. Okay. Oh, several planets on the moon sun axis. Okay. So the data is 1989 August 18 11:37 p.m. 4 hours west of GMT, Wilmington, Delaware. 75 degrees 32 minutes 49 seconds, 39 degrees 44 minutes 45 seconds. Lagna is 1 degree 31 minutes Taurus. Moon is 29 degrees 54 minutes Aquarius. Okay. So what are we going to see? What is the question? Okay, so the chart is not rectified, Vijay says, so we'll rectify it. It's not really in border. Lagna is, it is border, 5 minutes. 4 minutes 47 seconds. If the data is reasonably accurate, sign is probably fine, but we'll rectify.
Yeah, his education is doing undergraduate right now.
Undergrad, okay.
And changed already twice.
Change major twice.
I mean, he started one restrict do the
Uh-huh.
Now he wants to do the dual major in math and some biology.
Okay.
So what is there for him?
So he started out trying to do medicine, and then he changed to a dual major in math and biology. So the question is,
He's pursuing a dual degree right now.
he is pursuing a dual degree in math and biology. What an interesting combination. Actually good for, probably good for future, but we'll see it's based on the chart. So I see you guys smiling and nodding. So what did you find? You probably found something interesting. Okay, so luckily or unluckily, this is not an example for the house system that we were, at least in the Rashi. It's not an example for the houses that we were talking about earlier, because Lagna is at the beginning of Taurus. Whole Rashis are basically houses, so that's fine. Less complication. So we can just take the Rashi chart. By the way, Rashi chart and Bhava chart are similar. Same.
Not if it is 5 minutes earlier.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Okay. So Siddhamsa, let's see how much border we have. That will be probably less. 51 seconds earlier, the Siddhamsa Lagna will change, and 3 minutes 7 seconds later. So Siddhamsa is right on the border, so we are not sure of the Siddhamsa. Let us draw some conclusions based on Rashi alone. Okay? So what can we see? First of all, Lagna is not Vargottama, Lagna Lord is not in the 7th house, so none of the special rules apply. So we'll just use Vimshatri Dasha. And what is the Dasha running right now for this kid? Shani. Saturn Dasha is running based on Vimshatri Dasha from Moon, the default. Now, there are 6 planets on the 4th, 10th house axis, the career and education axis. There are 6 planets, including Rahu Ketu and luminaries. So let's see how things are. Sun is in a Gandanta, even though not in deep Gandanta, Sun is in Gandanta. The 4th Lord Sun is in Gandanta. That is one observation. Then who else is there? Mars, Mercury, Ketu. Ketu is, oh my god, Ketu is in Gandanta too, and he is so close to Sun. So Ketu and Sun are extremely close, within like half a degree, approximately half a degree difference between them, and both are in Gandanta. Terrible combination. Secondly, Mars, he is away further, much further away. So Mars is away, and Mercury, he is even more away. He is about to enter his exaltation sign, so he is excited. He is about to, in a few days, in a couple of days, he will be in his exaltation sign. So he is already basically like exalted. Basically, if you find his Uchibala, it will be very close to full. So he is basically very excited about that. So he is very happy. He is nearly exalted. So Mercury is strong. Mercury is at the end of the sign, Mars is at the middle of the sign, Sun and Ketu at the beginning of the sign. How about Moon? Moon is at the end of the sign and Rahu is at the beginning. So Sun, Rahu, Ketu combination is one combination, Moon, Mercury is another combination, and Mars is basically like alone. So that is what is going on the 4th and 10th axis. And Jupiter is in the 2nd house. So 2nd house is strong, and there is a Jupiter-Saturn aspect. Okay. Now, how is 4th house? What is your reading on the 4th house? How is the 4th house of education? How is the 4th house? Is it strong or weak in the Rashi? You judge the house based on the house as well as the house lord. House, if you look from the house point of view, it has its own lord. Even though he is being eclipsed by another planet, he is at least in his own house. He can fight back. And Mars, a friend of the lord of the house, is there. So Mars is in a friendly house. Mercury, even though, and 5th lord is in the 4th house. So 4th and 5th lords are together, even though they are far away. So it's not bad. House is actually reasonably strong. But what about the house lord? Sun. He is, even though he is in own house, he is in Gandanta. But on the positive side, he is on the cusp of the house. Lagna is at the beginning of Taurus and he is at the beginning of Leo. So he is very close to the most important point of the house. So his influence on the house is very strong. So house lord is right at the door of the house. So he's not at some corner of the house. So his influence on the house is very, very strong. So Sun is a very important planet for education. That's the bottom line. But Ketu is a problem planet. Ketu is moving away. Sun is moving into the house. Ketu is moving out of the house. So that is a very good point. So basically, from the point of view of the time, the temporal, the directional, the direction that they are in, they are actually not going to be in contact. So it's not, the problem is over basically. So it's not such a big problem. We will see D24. So the next thing to see, the fact that he is in Gandanta is problematic. But the thing is, it may not be relating to education. It may be relating to some other thing of the fourth house, like heart or something. That will bother about later. But from the point of view of education, some strength in D24 is important. So let us go to D24. Unfortunately, in the D24, Sun is afflicted by Rahu and Ketu. He is the Lagna Lord again, but we are not sure. He may be second Lord also. Lagna 51 seconds earlier it will change. So this may be Leo or Cancer also. Basically the first 1 degree 15 minutes will be Cancer Navamsa, and from 1:15 to 2:30 will be Leo Navamsa. So we are at the border. So now the only thing we know about his education is he was doing medicine. He was trying to do pre-med, and then he switched to math. And
Very good in the math.
he's good in math. Okay, he's very good in math. That's a good data point. Okay, now let us see Siddhamsa. And how was his basic education before he came to bachelor? So he's a top of the class kind of guy. Okay, basic ed, top of class. Okay. Actually, ed may be confusing. I'll say basic ed, edu. Okay. So in basic education, he was at the top of his class. So he had a good education. Now, if the Lagna is Leo or Cancer, which one will explain that better? See, basic education basically happened. He was born in 89. So 93 to 2012 Saturn Dasha. So throughout his basic education, it has been Saturn Dasha that has been running. Saturn Dasha throughout the education. And he is saying that this Dasha has been quite good for the basic education. Now for basic education, for Saturn Dasha to be good, which Lagna would make more sense? Should it be Cancer or Leo? For me? Why? Okay. Now Saturn is 6th and 7th Lord in 12th house, right? 6th Lord in 12th house with 12th Lord, Viprit Raj Yoga, but basically he's saying he was top of the class. It doesn't sound like a Viprit Raj Yoga. Some struggles, but finally things happening well. If you take, another thing is, apart from Lagna, to see a specific education, you can take the 4th house as Lagna, to see how things are in the basic education. From the 4th house, Saturn is in 9th house, but he is also in Bhargasthana. And he is the 3rd and 4th Lord, nothing really special. He is a Papasthana Lord and a Kendra Lord. So he is okay, he is not really a benefic from that house. And he is in the Bhargasthana. So it doesn't, even though there is 9th house is Bhargasthana, so it doesn't explain excellent education that much. Whereas if you take Cancer, let's move back. How do you change it? Here. If you move back to the previous sign, then what you get? You get the 4th house. The 4th house will be in Libra. Even from Lagna, actually, like you said, 7th Lord is in Lagna with the Lagna Lord. It's a Raj Yoga. It's a better combination than Viprit Raj Yoga. So that is one thing. Apart from it, Saturn in Cancer, Lagna is auspicious. Yeah, exactly. So apart from Lagna Lord and 7th Lord, Venus the 4th Lord is also on their axis, and Saturn is his dispositor. So he can give very good basic education, being the dispositor of 4th house. From 4th house as Lagna, yes, go ahead. Yes, from 4th house of basic education as Lagna, Libra. Saturn is now Yokaraka, 4th and 5th Lord, Yokaraka. So, and he is in the 10th house. Or based on the longitudes, he may be in the 9th house. But bottom line is he is well placed. He is in a Kendra or Kona, he is Yokaraka. He is not, he shows excellent education. So, basically being a smart guy and being a top of the class kind of guy makes very good sense. So, probably it is, time is off by a minute. So, instead of actually changing it just on the cusp, we will change it by a full minute. Let's say 11:36. And original time is 11:37, right? I'll just note that down here. Origin time 11:37. Changed based on D24. Okay. Cool. So we are comfortable that this is right, or are we? Could it be further wrong? Let's say, what about 11:31? So that it goes in Aries, goes to Aries in Rasi. Then the thing is, Moon will be the 4th Lord in Rasi chart. He would be in Bhagavasthana affected by Rahu, and in the Siddhamsa it is still Cancer. Does this make more sense or the other one? Do you know anything about the person? Is he aggressive, dynamic, or is he a hard-working kind of person? Does Taurus fit?
He's a hard worker. He's not a shy person.
Okay. Taurus doesn't necessarily mean shy, but is he very aggressive, dynamic kind of
In
person?
education, in the math.
In general, not just math, in general.
In general, he has a competitive person.
Competitive. Okay. Competitive could also be Taurus.
No, yeah.
How is his head? Is his head a big head or a thin? What kind of head does he have?
It's an average.
Okay. Typically, the thing with Aries Lagna people
He's
is
a tall person though.
okay. He's a tall person.
Almost 6'5".
See, the thing is with Aries Lagna, typically the head will be round.
Yes,
It's not like
his head is round.
his head is round, not like your head or Setu's head. It's a round head and big round head.
Yeah, his nose, his features are big. Nose is big.
Okay.
But I don't know what else.
Okay. Actually, let's see. Do you know anything about father?
Yeah.
Hmm? Why? Taurus is actually more pragmatic, and also Virgo is a very pragmatic sign rather than emotional. Pisces, Scorpio, Cancer, these are emotional signs. Yeah, possible. There is some indication, but the thing is, it's not that strong. Venus
He's
is,
a strong-headed person. He's a deterministic guy.
he's a what?
He's a very deterministic guy.
Very deterministic or determined?
He's a deterministic. Anything he wants to do, he's determined. He doesn't change his mind.
Very fixed, stubborn. Okay.
Stubborn
That fits with Taurus more. Okay. So we are getting various data points here. Taurus. Does he like sweets? You have no clue. Probably you never went to them.
No, he is my nephew.
You don't know if he likes sweets. How does he speak? Yeah, I mean, is he eloquent, articulate?
Yeah, he's a good speaker.
He's a good speaker,
Yeah. I mean, not like speeches he gives.
but articulate in expressing himself.
I'm not.
When you talk to him, I mean, you don't have to go to his debates. When you generally talk to him, do you get the impression that he is?
No, yeah.
He's okay. The thing is, if it is Aries Lagna, the second lord Venus would be debilitated. So the debilitation of the second lord is not really good for speech. And also Jupiter is in Manakarka Sthana, the ninth lord, and also the Karka for speech. So the thing is, on the other hand, if it is Taurus Lagna, then the thing is, if it is Taurus Lagna, another thing is for a modern birth data being wrong by 5 minutes is unlikely, even though possible. That is the other factor. That is why we are getting biased towards Taurus. As long as we can explain things through Taurus, we should stick to Taurus. So in Taurus, the second house contains Jupiter, and in a Mercurian sign. Second lord is Mercury, and he is very strong. And second house contains Jupiter, and he is the other karaka of speech. So he has to be basically eloquent, somebody who speaks well and also speaks nicely, rather than speaking bluntly or speaking. He can speak nicely to people and get things done, and also with clarity.
He's pretty good, pretty clear.
Yeah. So most likely.
He wants to go in the research and teaching side rather than
Okay.
community work.
Okay, we'll look into that also. Unfortunately, Dashamsa won't help because Dashamsa Lagna will be the same. The last Dashamsa of Aries will be Capricorn, and the last Dashamsa of first Dashamsa of Taurus will also be Capricorn. On the edges between odd and even signs, you have this problem. Same sign will be at the end of odd sign and beginning of even sign. But the other even to odd transition, it will change. But odd to even transition, unfortunately, Dashamsa will remain the same. So Siddhamsa also remains the same. So unfortunately here. So unfortunately, those cannot be used for distinguishing. Do you know anything about parents? For father, tell me something about father. Not his name, but what he does, etc.
Yeah, he's an engineer.
He's an engineer. Okay. So the options we have is the last Dvadashamsa of Aries is Pisces. The first Dvadashamsa of Taurus is Taurus itself. So we have either Taurus Lagna or Pisces Lagna in the Dvadashamsa. So father is, you said, an engineer. What kind?
He's a chemical engineer.
Yeah.
Has a business background also.
Chemical engineer with business background. Okay, that's enough. That's enough. That's enough. So which one explains it better? What do you guys think? Which one explains that better? An engineer. Yeah, take L9. Take L9. Where is L9? Ninth house is Capricorn. L9 will be in Virgo. If you take this. If you take, on the other hand, Pisces Lagna, ninth would be here. Who is stronger, Mars or Ketu? So basically, who is stronger? Who is the ninth lord, Mars or Ketu? Let's take Mars. So from Mars, this is in the 10th house. So if you take 10th house from Scorpio, it is Leo. But it can't be that, so we take Taurus. So the options are either Taurus or Virgo. Those are the options for L9. Right? Unfortunately, both will explain his engineering background. Because in the case of Taurus, Mars and Rahu are in the 10th house and they can show engineering background. And if you take on the other hand, if you take Virgo, basically the 10th lord is Mercury, but 6th house contains Mars and Rahu, aspected by Sun. So both the ways there is an influence of engineering. May or may not be. The thing is, when you are looking at father's details from the sun's Dvadashamsa, so you won't see such clarity, you won't get the perfect planet. So at least basically Mars showing some kind of engineering is there. Rahu and Ketu are there, so they can show some engineering. Anything else you know about father? When he came to US, or actually anything you can say, is he hardworking person, stubborn person, intelligent person?
He's also very good in the math, and he also did the teaching profession. He did the engineering.
Oh,
He teaches,
that's a very good data point. Yeah.
he teaches SAT.
Okay. He is basically a natural teacher, and he also does some teaching, even though he is in engineering. And he is an intelligent person, good in math. Now, if you take Virgo, Jupiter in Lagna, so basically in general a respected personality and also a teacher-like personality, and Mercury is the Lagna lord, so an intelligent person, and the 10th house is basically owned by Mercury, and Mercury can show an academic career, and also Jupiter is in the Lagna, so he can be a teacher. So this would make, and also Venus is aspect in the 10th house. Venus is the other teacher. Jupiter and Venus are the teachers. So, and more importantly, influence of Mercury shows academic orientation basically in the career. So this one explains things better. So let's stick to based on this, based on other things. Let's just stick to the Taurus Rashi for Lagna. Now let's go back to Dvadashamsa. So what are we trying to see here? So what is our goal? We want to advise him on his education. So like we said earlier, for basic education, Saturn is a Yokarka. But how about the bachelor education? The Dasha running right now is still Jupiter, still Saturn. How is it for bachelor education? Bachelor education is seen from Pisces, not Libra anymore. And unfortunately, in the case of Libra, Saturn is Yokarka, he is dispositor of the Lord of Libra, he is in a Kendra from Venus and all that. But from Jupiter also he is in a trine, he is not bad. But he is the 11th and 12th Lord. He is not really a great planet. He is a functional LP from the 9th house as well. Right? So he is showing some problems. It's not really that smooth. And he is in the fifth house. Fifth house of? Pardon me? Yeah, the 11th Lord is okay, but also he is the 12th Lord. He gives mixed results, right? So it's not really. By the way, looking at this chart, what education is actually suitable for him? The strongest influence on the 9th house. Moreover, the Sun happens to be the Karyasha, so he is a very important planet. And also he is the second Lord. In case there is a master's education, Sun is the one. So he is the connection between second house and 9th house, bachelor education and master's education. So that Sun is affecting 9th house. So medicine is a possibility. Surgery, that kind of things are a possibility. But unfortunately, he has actually moved on to something else. Unfortunately, he moved on from pre-med into math and medicine. Right. We'll give our advice. But let's see how how math and biology fit here. Yeah, Ketu and Mercury show math. Ketu is aspecting, Mercury is also having Rashi aspect and having Akala. So there is an influence of Mercury Ketu. See, the thing is, in dual sense, there are 5 planets. So Mercury is actually a pretty decent planet. He is giving Vimal Yoga in this Siddhamta. But the thing is, being the Karyasha, Sun is a key planet. And his being with Rahu and Ketu, even though it's an affliction, it can show a good surgeon. Let's see that up. Excuse me. He is the 4th Lord in Rashi. Basically, he is the controller of education. So him being with Rahu and Ketu, and he also having a link to the second house. That is the other point. Mercury doesn't have a link to the second house. So if he does math, there is Argala, but it's not a strong link. Whereas if he goes to surgery, medicine, etc., there is a good chance that he will continue that in the masters, etc. But can his career be as a surgeon? Or let's go to the career now. Based on Siddhamsa, everything makes sense. Medicine is fine, math is fine, but let us see the Dashamsa and see what career is likely. Okay? In the Dashamsa, what is the Lagna? What is the Dashamsa? Dashamsa Lagna is Capricorn. So how are things? Actually, let us see if we can apply the houses thing. Because we have already changed the time by 1 minute, let's assume the time is accurate. It may be further 1 minute back, but let's assume that it's accurate. So in D10, Lagna is at 12 degrees Capricorn. It may be little further, but it can't be before that. Okay? So 12 degree Capricorn, and most planets are above, but Mars, Mercury and Jupiter, they are below. Right? Mars, Mercury and Jupiter, when you find their houses from Lagna, you have to move them to Mars, Mercury and Jupiter, move them to previous time mentally. Okay? Other planets are in the same houses. Okay. Now in the Dashamsa, Lagna contains Mars, but he is in the 12th house. But actually, if time was a little further back, another half minute back or so, he would actually be in the Lagna itself, not in the 12th house. So we don't know for sure if Mars is in 12th house or Lagna. There is no way to be know. There is no way we can know for sure. If there are some events that we know from his career, we can figure out. But right now, based on what we know, we can't figure out. So he is on the cusp. He is either in the 12th house or Lagna or a first house, but he is exalted. If he is in first house, he will give Rishika Yoga. Otherwise, he doesn't give Rishika Yoga, but he is an exalted planet. Now, the Lagna Lord is Saturn. The Lagna Lord Saturn is in the 4th house. Who shows the career? The 10th house is owned by Venus. The 6th house is owned by Mercury in the 6th house or 4th house. Probably 4th house. So Mercury is the 6th Lord. He is in the 4th house. And Venus is the 10th Lord. Who is showing career here? How do you see the career of this person? How do you see the career? Yes, very good point. Compared to the 6th Lord Mercury, who is not really particularly strong, he is in a friendly sign, he is in a Adhnitra Rashi, but he is in 4th house. 10th Lord? 10th Lord Venus is not in a friendly sign, and he is aspecting Lagna. That is a good point. He has a close aspect on Lagna. So 10th Lord is 7th house. He can give some business relating to Venusian area. So there is a chance of some Venusian business, but he is not tying into the education. The possible. Yeah, Venus is not really. Let's not consider Venus for medicine. Let's consider. We didn't find any Venus link in the Siddhanta. So Venus here, especially in Cancer, is showing something else. Venus is basically arts, etc., and he is in a moon sign. So because of Venus is in Cancer, it is possible that he has a business, some business relating to some luxury goods or arts or something. When Venus influence comes in life, that is a possibility. But that may or may not have anything to do with his education. So let us leave that aside. And out of the planets that have something to do with his education, who is influencing career? Her point is good. The 10th Lord is okay. He is good. He will also probably give a career. And 6th Lord is okay. Mercury is not that strong. And what about pardon me? Guru is also in the 8th house. Yeah. Right, but the thing is Rahu, second Lord is in the 2nd house, like she said. Second Lord Rahu is in the 2nd house. So 2nd house is very strong. So the thing is, basically 2nd house is about resources and money, and 6th house is overcoming obstacles, and 10th house is accomplishment. Everything decides career. Here 2nd house is strong. So basically the resources that you have for doing your work, that is what defines your work. Especially if you are a surgeon who does some sophisticated surgeries, then 2nd house is obviously probably in some cases even more important than 6th house and 10th house, etc. So from that point of view, it is possible that Rahu in the 2nd house will decide her career. In that case, Sun is aspecting. Sun from own house, giving Sala Yoga, is aspecting that Rahu. So Sun Rahu Ketu in combination, which was also in the Siddhamsa, which is also in the Rashi chart, in the house of education, that is repeating on the 2nd house of earning in the Dashamsa. So there is a chance that if he actually studies math, we are not sure what kind of career he will have as a math teacher or math researcher. It's not that great. Yeah. No, the thing is, when you have a Sun Rahu Ketu combination, you don't really pick Ketu and say this is a case of math. And especially Ketu also shows math, but Mercury is more karaka of logic, analysis, etc. So even though he is strong in Siddhamsa, he is not that strong in the Dashamsa. So he can study math, but it may or may not be it may or may not define his career. Whereas if he goes to education, if he goes to surgery, if he goes to medicine, especially focusing on some field where he can do a lot of surgeries, complicated surgeries. Yeah. there is a good chance that he will have a good career in that line. So from that point of view, my suggestion would be, looking at all the factors, my suggestion would be, unless he is too bored with it, surgery is the right thing for him. Medicine is the right thing for him. He will be a pretty decent surgeon. Basically, there is Sarva Yoga given by Sun in the cancer. It's not in age, so he will do well.
Also, we wanted to do medicine, but
Yeah.
we didn't get the university we wanted to go in.
I see. I see. Okay, so he can make his decision. He has his option. He can make his decision. But my feeling is that will be a better line for him than math and biology. Yeah. Sunny is because he's in Gandanta and he's weak. He's affected by Ketu and all that. Strengthening Sun will be good. So you can strengthen Sun by. See, the thing is, his Bhavachakra and Rashachakra are same. So you can do Savitrika mantra. Actually, Aditya Hridayam is a good idea. Aditya Hridayam, that is a good idea. And Om, yeah, he can do that. And Ghanit Surya Aditya, Om Ghanit Surya Aditya, Om, that is the mantra. Om Ghanit Surya Aditya, Om. That mantra he can do. Om Ghanit Surya Aditya, Om. Basically all in Pratma Vibhakti. Normally in mantra you say for Surya I pray, or for moon I pray, for this planet. These are like for or to or of. There is some Vibhakti. Here it is in Pratma Vibhakti. It is basically, it's not saying to sun or anything. It's saying Sun, Ghanit, Surya, Aditya. That's it. In Hare Rama Krishna it's actually Sambodhana Pratma Vibhakti. It is O Hari, O Rama, O Krishna. You are actually treating him as different from you. You are calling him on. So that is a mantra of calling the God on. Even Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, you are calling on the God. This is in the Sambodhana Pratma Vibhakti. Here it is in Pratma Vibhakti itself. Just declare he is there. Sun is there. That's it. You are just saying Sun. That's it. You are not saying two sun, person. So it's basically a declaration of Sun. And Sun is basically the Pratma. He is the ruler of the Lagna. He is the significator of Lagna, first house. So you are just declaring him existential mantra. It's must on the first house. So anyway, so Om Ghanit Surya Aditya Om, that mantra. Actual mantra is Ghanit Surya Aditya, Om Ghanit Surya Aditya, but it's a good idea to add Om at the end also. So, yeah. Okay, good. Okay. Another thing for Sun is, if you want to propitiate Sun, another thing that you can do is, of course, if he distance himself from religion, he won't do, but something like Homam basically, a fairy ritual. It will basically, if you propitiate Sun, fire is basically a small representation of Sun. So propitiating fire is a good idea. Another thing you can do is, if he doesn't like to do any propitiation, just light a candle and sit in front of the candle. So just light a candle or deepam, sit in front of the deepam and keep looking at it. That is actually, that will strengthen the Sun inside. That is a good idea. Actually, with the lamp there is a specific mudra called Samhi mudra that can be practiced. But bottom line is, he doesn't need to do anything. Just sit in front of the candle, stare at the candle, and think of God in whatever terms he has. In whatever terms he visualizes God these days, whatever his idea of God is, just contemplate on that idea, but keep staring at the candle as much as you can without blinking your eyes. That will be a good remedy for strengthening the Sun. And of course, if he has inclination, doing any mantra for Sun, Aditya Hridayam, Surya Aditya, that is definitely beneficial. Anything else? Any other points you want to make? Any other comments? Actually, he said he has turned away from everything religious. Is there any religious potential, spiritual potential in the child? What do you think? Yeah. Yeah, in the Vimshamsa, in the Rasi, Saturn is in the 8th house. and the fifth Lagna Lord is in the fifth house. In Vimshamsa, the eighth house has eighth Lord Moon in Manakarkasthana, and he is aspected by Rahu, Ketu, Sun, Venus, everybody there. So there is a very powerful combination on the eighth house. So it's not bad at all. Spiritually, there is potential. It's not, even though he is not into religion right now, he may be. He may be in future. Maybe this is not the right time. Maybe this is not the right time. Maybe when the right. See, for example, this time, Taurus Dasha, all the planets, 4 planets in the 12th house. So some change will happen after 2012 and before 2020. Some change will happen with respect to religion and spirituality. He will become more spiritual. So anyway, all these things don't matter. But if he is not inclined in God, fine. No need to do a mantra. Just look at lamp. Or even looking at the sun basically in the morning and doing some Surya Namaskara, some physical exercise, looking at the sun is not a bad idea. But also looking at a lamp is a good idea. So all the best to him. I think he will do well in education. Career, actually, what do you think? Is it a great career or average career? Honestly, forgetting that he is a nephew of one of our friends. Yeah, it does look average. The Lagna Lord is debilitated, even though there is Nichabhanga, he is debilitated, Lagna Lord. And overall, there is no planet that basically stands out as really powerful in the chart. Even though Sun, Rahu, Ketu combination is showing a Sajjan, they are on the 8th house axis. Sun is in Gandanta in Rashi chart. And in the Rashi chart, 10th house has Moon and Rahu combination. So overall, by the way, that also is, there is a Sun Rahu axis on the 10th house in Rashi also. So surgery seems like the best career for him, but he will be an average surgeon. He will not be like a great big shot or famous guy. He will do okay. Second house is very strong. That is the strongest house. If you ask me, 8th house, even though 8th Lord is an 8th giving Sada Yoga Sun, he is afflicted. He is not clean. He is afflicted. Whereas Rahu is clean. Even though Sun is affecting him, he is at least alone in the sign. He is in his own house alone. Yes, when the Venus periods come, he can go into business. So be a surgeon, make a lot of money as a surgeon, and with the profits, start a business. Have some beauty goods, some luxury goods, vehicles, something like that, having to do with Cancer and Venus. That will be quite useful to him, especially in the Venus Dasha. How old will he be? 11 plus 30, 47 years of age. So he would have made enough money as a surgeon. Have a business in Venus Dasha. No, actually, seriously, he is very strong. He is affecting Lagna. So you should seriously consider that. Any other points? You guys found something? You were 7th Lord? Yeah, that's the other thing. So Venus is in the 7th house and 7th Lord is in the 11th house. It's good for money. So Venus Dasha, Venus Moon Antardasha, like that basically. So he should really go for business, but not anytime soon. Ketu is definitely not for business. Mercury is also not really. So focus on surgery, focus on medical career, and slowly rise in the career and make enough money. And hope that Obama doesn't reform the healthcare so much that his potential to make money comes down drastically, like in some European countries. And hope he makes some good money, and then when Venus Dasha comes, start some business. Any other comments? Okay, so all the best to him. Sanjam, okay. Sun, is he a benefic or malefic? He is a functionally, is he a benefic or malefic? 4th house. For a benefic, it is for a natural benefic. 4th house is a malefic house. For a natural malefic, it is a neutral house. That is what Parasharapa. In any case, he is not a benefic. He is a neutral or malefic. So he is not really, and he is in Gandanta. So strengthening somebody in Gandanta by wearing a gem is not a great idea. So don't wear a gem. Propitiate him. Say to him, boss, you are in Gandanta, but save me. Don't say, okay, the man in Gandanta come and sit on my lap. That's not a good idea. So stay away from everything. Actually, which gem is good for him? Which gem is good for him? Diamond. Rahu, why? 10th Lord in 10th, maybe for career. He is affecting both. That's a good part. So mental peace, basically he is attacking it, but the thing is they are at opposite ends. It's not really like that. It's okay, but again he's a natural male freak owning the 10th house. He's a natural neutral planet. He's not such a tremendous planet, but at least he's 10th Lord in 10th house. He is in one house. He is Paramita Tara Lord from moon. So it's not bad at all. I wouldn't really say don't wear it, but I wouldn't really recommend wear a Gomehika. But Venus, Lagna Lord is debilitated. He is also the 10th Lord in D10 for career. Yokarka in D10. And in Rasi he is the basic Lagna Lord. So from those angles, it may or may not do much for education, but at least 6th house of emotional stability it will give, because he is debilitated there. And Lagna basically the overall personality will be strengthened. So there is one weakness in the chart, two weaknesses. Sun, Atmakaraka, Naisargika Atmakaraka being debilitated, Sun not debilitated, being in Gandanta, and Lagna Lord being debilitated. These are the two major weaknesses in the chart. So debilitation of Lagna Lord, you can address it by wearing a gemstone. You can basically strengthen him. So he can consider wearing that. Yeah. 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 Wouldn't that be one? Yeah, there is cancellation of Nija, absolutely. There is also Mercury is in a Kendra from Lagna. So there is a cancellation of Nija, no doubt. Yeah. There is a cancellation of Nija, but the thing is, there is some weakness in terms of the overall personality. So that can be strengthened. So wearing a diamond is a good idea, and doing propitiation of Sun is a good idea. So all the best to him. But if at all he can somehow go back to medicine, medicine is the best for him. Okay. So with that we will end today's class. Om Sarvam Shri Krishnarpanamastu. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. Sarve dharmika jana sukhino bhavantu. Yavad bhumandale sanatana dharmo vadhatu visheshatah bharatakhande. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.